Hi, I'm Laura Flanders. Today, just 1% of the world's population controls nearly half of the planet's wealth, according to a new study published by Oxfam ahead of this year's World Economic Forum meeting in Davos. The study says this super elite controls $110 trillion, or 65 times the total wealth of the poorest 3.5 billion. Other key findings? The world's 85 richest people own as much as the poorest 50%. 70% of the world's people live in countries where income inequality has been growing in the last 30 years. And in the US, where the gap between rich and poor has grown faster than in any other developed country, the top 1% captured 95% of all growth since the 2009 recession. Barbara Garson is the author of a series of books describing American working lives at historically important turning points. Her new book is Down the Up Escalator: How the 99% Live. Barbara, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Laura.
So Barbara, would you call this one of those historically important turning points?
Yes, because, well, we've been moving down. I mean, that is to say, the wealth gap has been growing since about the 70s in this country. And in the world, too. We were kind of the leaders, proud of American supremacy, we're the leaders in that. But the ruling class doesn't seem to care anymore. They used to be Keynesian. They used to say, uh-oh, wait a minute. If we have 50% of the wealth, if they can't afford to buy back what's produced, we better rebalance it and keep going for a while. They seem to have forgotten that. In a way, we're in a dangerous situation. They seem to be taking the same attitude on the economy that they're taking on the environment.
But look at the statistics that they're looking at. I mean, at Davos we heard about growth rates, GDP going up, about productivity going up, about, well, the stock market having the best record it's had in years. So by their indices, nothing is wrong.
A lot of their growth is in the same kind of derivatives they were investing in before. They're lending money to people who can't pay back. They know, I think some of them know anyway, when they hear that you come out of the recession with even greater inequality than when you went into it, they know that they have to keep making the same kind of loans they made before, namely lending money to people to buy houses they can't afford, lending money to students to go to colleges, and the students will never earn enough to pay the money back. That's dangerous in the long run.
And you think they know this at some level?
I don't know what each individual knows, but they all used to be the Keynesians. I used to be the socialist and say, well, but it isn't nice. I know you could keep going that way with recurrent crises, but it isn't nice. Now, I'm the one that's reminding them that it's also impossible unless they do the usual Keynesian redistribution, which they used to do every few decades, but now they're just taking more and more and more.
Well, let's talk about the people that you followed in your book, Down the Up Escalator, and why you decided to follow these folks in the first place. Your last book, the last time we talked to you, you've been following a dollar bill, I think, around the country,
my own
around the
bank
world.
Money, my investment.
This time you decided to follow a group of people. Let's start with that Pink Slip Club.
Well, when the recession hit, a publisher wanted a quickie on the recession. So I started interviewing people who lost their jobs in the recession. But I gave him a little more than he wanted, which is to say, what I discovered is these people had been going down economically for a long time. They had nothing to fall back on. So these were a group of friends who met in their church. It happened to be a Wiccan church in New York City, but they were people who earned about $50,000 a year as a graphics artist, as an insurance adjuster, those kind of jobs. And they lived in Manhattan, and they could just make it on their $50,000. And they thought it would be over very quickly. And what finally happened is that 2 are now working, 2 aren't. But, and this is characteristic of what's going on since the 70s, the person who had a full-time job as a graphics person for a textbook company now works catch as catch can for those same kinds of companies. In fact, he works through a contractor. So he has no benefits. He's making a little less an hour, but he has no benefits. He has no guarantee of any work. He works when he can. Somebody who works there still in the management thing told him that they're sending the work abroad now. He will never have that kind of job again, nor will new people coming into that industry.
So you've got long time unemployed, and then you have people whose jobs have completely transformed.
I met a woman who had been the top salesperson for a very fancy Fifth Avenue clothing store. The kind that when you go in, you know, you spend thousands of dollars at a time, and she would dress certain women every year. And she was their highest grossing saleswoman very often. She had a commission. And during the recession, they started laying people off. Well, okay, that happens. They started giving them shorter hours. Okay, that happens. Then their commission disappeared. She thought that it would come back afterwards. And then she noticed that they were actually hiring new people during this recession. And the new people were coming on with no commissions. And they were young people making like $11 an hour. And her position was reduced to that too. The store did have somewhat of a downturn, but all the time it was planning what it was going to do afterwards. And I talked to a stockbroker who said, oh, I'm very glad to hear about that company, because a lot of good developments like that come on during a recession. And you see, that company did lose business. But I mentioned to you before the person who worked for a textbook company. Their business went up continuously. And they also used the recession as an opportunity to make all their permanent people temporary. And that is the new norm.
All right, so let's talk about the numbers. The numbers that I just read from the Oxfam report, do you think this is the new normal in terms of the gap between rich and poor?
Not unless we do something about it, yes, that's the direction it's moving in.
What does the new normal in the workplace look like? Because we're being told we're coming back from the recession of 2009.
A victory has been had during those recessions. Companies are making the same profit. They may be doing even a little less business, but they're making the same profit or a little more. Those jobs are the jobs I just mentioned. The sales lady who now gets no more commissions. And in fact, the company has hired more people, but only giving them fewer hours. Those jobs are like the graphics designer that I just mentioned. Only he's now working through contractors and getting a part-time job and much less pay. Profit went up about 25% for American corporations from the beginning of the recession to its official end in 2009. That's very unusual during a recession. And that, when we talk about profit, I'm talking about money that went to the investors.
Yeah. Well, we heard 90% of all the gains since 2009 have gone directly to that top 1%.
Right. Top 1%, not of salary earners, but of investors.
Why is there reason for concern when productivity is up, when growth is up, when labor costs are down, frankly?
If productivity is up, and by the way, it went up 99% between 1971 and the beginning of the recession, and salaries went up 4%. And that means a lot of people stayed even or went down because they went up for high people. But that means that people can't buy back what they produce. These companies say, okay, I have a good idea. Instead of paying you to buy back what you produce, I'll lend you the money. And they lent us money to buy cars. They lent us money to buy houses that we couldn't afford.
And it all melted down in 2009.
Down.
The other point you raise in your book is that as in 2009 and the years running up to 2009, so too today, there's still an enormous pile of money that elite 1% we're talking about doesn't know what to do with.
If your profits are great, it goes to investors. They put it in brokerage accounts or banks. A bank can't keep its money in the bank. The bank has to do something with it. If they can't, if people can't buy back products, then they have to start investing not in companies that are making more. They have to start investing in derivatives of the derivatives. Well, I'll tell you, we'll put the bonds. You know, they're investing, putting money back in the stock market, but the companies aren't actually producing more. Put money in the stock market, the stock goes up, to be sure.
The changing flank of our economy these days are companies that aren't about producing things.
So that's, you ask the question, why are they doing the same thing again? They have to do something with the profits. If they grab more profits, they're not spending them. You know, if inequality meant I make $30,000 a year, you make $1 million a year, that's not very nice. You spend the million on a yacht, I take care of your yacht, I sweep it up, and I'm still worried about my children getting into college. That's not nice, but unfortunately, it's stable. Capitalism could run this way. But when that's not the $1 million we're talking about, spending millions of dollars because you're earned more than me. When we say they got more, inequality, their share went up, their share is of money they made in interest, money they made in investments, and they just put that back into brokerage funds, back into banks. And those banks and brokerage funds have to do something with it. They're doing the same derivatives they did before. No derivative. You know, a man who kind of invented the math for the derivatives, Ed Thorpe, brilliant guy. They asked him after the crash, do you think the stock market is still safe? He said, well, if we could move the money to Mars, that would be better. But we can't move it to Mars, so we have to put it back into the stock market, even though it's a Ponzi scheme.
So it's unstable,
So it's
but there's more to it than that. You went around the country.
And no, I wonder, you're asking me a question that I can't answer. I look at these guys and I say, they're taking the same attitude toward the economy, which is unstable, that they're taking toward the climate change. Am I crazy? Am I the only one wondering? No, you know, and their gurus remind them once in a while. You know, you can get a little bit at Davos or somebody in a corner reminding them that this is unstable. But they were bailed out 100% last time.
Up to now, we've been doing what a lot of the media do, which is talk about the economy, talk about the elites, talk about general trends. I want you to talk about people, which is what you do so brilliantly in your book, Down the Up Escalator. You, like Studs Terkel, 40 years ago, went and interviewed people and came away with a portrait that wasn't just about numbers, but was really about a reality of life that many of us in the media are kind of numb to, or maybe we're just not aware of, in the sense that you talk about people's pain in their workplace, people's disappointment, people's discouragement. There's actually less joy in your book than there was in Studs's, and time was hard then. What is it doing to people?
By the way, I've written 4 books in 4 decades, and there's less joy in every decade.
But you talked about people talking about staff, a family, and loving the moments that they had when they were employed, and the pain that they have doing jobs that are meaningless telephone sales when they used to help people find work.
What's increasing is their insecurity and their sense that they should be doing better. In other words, people graduate from college and think that it's them. Why am I graduated from college? I'm only earning $35,000. I was an intern last year, and I've got all these bills from college, and my mother thinks I'm stupid. Why did I do it this way? And maybe I'm living back at home. And it's going to take a while before the parents realize, oh my goodness, the child made the best decision she could. She invested in herself, or she bought a house that was a fixer-upper, the couple, and it's just, the dollars and cents don't add up. You're not being paid enough, and you're indebted. I don't want to go into student debt. It's a form of slavery.
But people get increasingly depressed. They get increasingly dislocated. And we're told that
and
the
it takes a while to
long-term
realize, and we're doing the job of helping them realize that it's not just them, that this is the new norm, that the so-called recovery that everybody is bragging about is this. We've recovered. We've taken your full-time job away and given a part-time job, and we've given the difference to our stockholders. We've recovered. Let's breathe a sigh of relief.
What about the people?
Oh, what do you think it feels like? It will feel better, I think. I hope it will feel a little better when you say, hey, they did it to us. This is universal. This is not just me. I didn't choose a stupid school to go to in a stupid major. I didn't choose a stupid job. I didn't fall behind on technology, and that's why I'm a part-timer, or that's why I'm a temp worker now. I think it will feel a little better when people say, ooh, They want us to be like that. They don't care. Maybe they want us to be like that. Maybe they don't care. I think it will feel a little better, and I hope people will then turn around and say, wait, the stuff is all there. It's not like we're too poor to have houses. It's not like there isn't. As a matter of fact, there's a huge vacancy crisis, so we don't even have to chop down trees to house everybody. No, there's 17% of the houses in the United States are vacant right now. So there's a place for all of us to move into if we just comfortably, maybe not in Manhattan, if we just redistribute our ability to pay for it. You know, I'm a socialist. I'm frightened because I don't see our capitalists saying, oops, better have a temporary redistribution. They learned to do that in the 30s. In fact, they even learned to do that in the 1870s. I don't see them doing it. And we should all be frightened just as we're all frightened about the environment. We say, oh, wait, they always find a way out. Uh-oh, there's nobody working on it but us. That's why we're doing it. We have to get to work on it. There are capitalist solutions, redistribution, but they're not doing it. So that way, maybe why we have to have a socialist solution this time. You know, like if there's 17% of the houses vacant, we'll just move into them.
Thank you so much. Down the Up Escalator, How the 99% Live. I recommend it. Great stories, great read. Barbara Garson, thank you.